The pink shirt is back, so you know what that means. It's time for some Broncos news and rumors here on the Broncos Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Sam Brown, and today we've got a little bit of news and a little bit of rumors for you that we'll jump into. Some stuff around some Broncos players and Mel Kiper's latest mock draft. He's got the Broncos making some big moves, but you're going to have to wait and find out what he's got the Broncos doing in his latest NFL mock draft. We'll start with some news here on today's show. Jurrell Casey has been released by the Denver Broncos today. The defensive end obviously played well to start out the season, but unfortunately suffered that torn biceps in week 3 and has not played for the Broncos, missed the rest of the season. Ended the season on IR. The move, however, saves $12 million for the Broncos in 2021 as part of his 2-year, $27.5 million deal remaining with the team. At the time of the trade from the Titans, everyone thought this was a fleece. You know, a day 3 pick for a solid quality starter in the NFL. Looked pretty good for the Broncos back then. Unfortunately, very short-lived as Jurrell Casey lasts only 3 games with the Broncos and is now a free agent. This isn't surprising news to me, and I've talked about this before on the show, the cap cut, because all of that money that they would save from cutting Jurrell Casey, it's unfortunate because he provides really strong leadership on that defensive line with young guys like Draymond Jones in there, growing and developing by the week. But at the end of the day, when you can save $12 million and put that money in better places, I think it's a move George Paton had to make, and I don't blame him for making it. You look at his stats for the 2020 season, you know, in the 3 games he was in, like I said, pretty solid. 14 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 3 pass breakups in 3 games. In the end of the day, this is a team that's looking to put money in other places. Maybe the quarterback position is something that we've talked about plenty of time on this show. But Jurrell Casey cut by the Denver Broncos. In all likelihood, this was a move that George Paton and the Broncos had to make, along with the cutting of A.J. Boye just a couple weeks ago, to clear up that cap space, maybe go out and sign a big free agent, make a big splash for a quarterback, a Deshaun Watson type. But in the end, Jurrell Casey, wish him all the best, obviously, in his future seasons in the NFL. We'll start off with this question for you. Was cutting Jurrell Casey a good or bad move by the Broncos? You can type your G for good in the comments section, or go down in the comments section and type B for bad. In the end of the day, I'm going to say this was a good decision. I think this was a decision, like I said, they had to make to clear up all that cap space and devote that money elsewhere. But as always, want to hear from you in the comments section. And we're going to be covering stuff like this all off-season long, free agency news, maybe more cuts coming for Denver. So be sure to subscribe and keep up with all the latest around the Denver Broncos here on the Broncos Breakdown. We're trying to get to 2,000 subs here by Sunday, and we're getting pretty close. We need your help. We're churning out videos all week. I mean, you talk about a video Monday, a video Tuesday, a video Wednesday, this video coming out tonight. We've got maybe another mailbag or 2 this weekend. Stay tuned for that. But we're churning out content all the time for you guys. You're not going to want to miss it. So hit that big red button and subscribe today. All right, some draft rumors here now on today's show. And this is interesting. Could the Broncos trade down from the number 9 pick in the draft? We've talked about this entire time of needing to select potentially the top defensive player available at number 9, depending on where they've got him on the Broncos big board. But James Palmer suggested this quarterback domino that could happen in the first 7-8 picks of the first round could lead to the Broncos trading down. And we'll show you that quote here in a little bit. In addition, Mel Kiper Jr. released his latest mock draft and had the Broncos trading down with the New England Patriots to the number 15 pick. We'll jump into that trade as well. The real question for me is, will one of their top prospects still be there? I think if you trade down, you're at least hoping one of your top 2-3 guys that you're really aiming for at number 9 will be there at number 15. And that's a big question and a big jump. Obviously, it's only 6 spots, but it's more than it seems. So we'll start by jumping into this quote by James Palmer, NFL Network, talking about the Broncos situation at number 9, said, quote, "But also with the quarterbacks, if there is a quarterback still available, does somebody want to come up?" And then George Paton has the ability to move backwards because we haven't heard anything. And it's the best kept secret in football if the Broncos are interested in one of these quarterbacks at the top of the draft, because we have heard nothing there. So those quarterbacks could manipulate where the Broncos go at 9 on the quality of player they have or the potential of moving back if somebody wants to come up. It's a lot to process there from James Palmer. I'll start by asking this right off the bat before we jump into the Mel Kiper side of things and what I think about this. should the Broncos trade from the number 9 pick in the draft? This will be the pinned comment on today's video. So whenever you scroll down underneath this, it's the very first comment you see from our channel. Get your votes in. Why for yes, you would trade back, or N for no, you want to stay at 9, maybe even trade up in the NFL draft, but let me know in the comments. My real question is, what is their interest in the draft quarterbacks? Because if a quarterback domino comes along, like Palmer said, there might be one of those quarterbacks that the Broncos like that they've got to make a move on, in which case you stay at 9 if he's there at 9. However, if they decide either A, to stay with Drew Lock, or B, to enter the trade/free agency market for their starter, I think moving back in the draft kind of makes some sense, especially, like I said, if one of those top 2, top 3 guys is still available for Denver. Now we'll talk about Mel Kiper's trade from his article, his latest mock draft, which was just released today on Thursday, if you're watching this on Thursday night. The Broncos received the 15th overall pick, a 2021 second, and a 2022 first. Now, first of all, that 2022 first, he says a 2022 pick, and he says he thinks that it might take that first rounder in 22 to get the job done, and the Patriots received the number 9 overall pick. Now, before I ask you if you do this trade or not, a big question is what players are still on the board. So let's run through them. You've got your trio that we talked about all the time here on the Broncos channel, Surtain, Farley, and Parsons. They're all on the board right there at number 9 in Kiper's mock draft. Rashawn Slater is an interesting guy that I've talked about a couple times, can fit in a few different positions on the offensive line, whether it's at the guard position or even at right tackle, a very versatile lineman that I'd be interested in. And then let me introduce to you Trey Lance. As you know, for some of you that say maybe the Broncos should draft a quarterback if he's there at 9, and the Broncos think he's better than Drew Lock. I doubt any of the Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields trio will be there at number 9. But if Lance is there, that might be something worth considering. A lot of raw potential, a lot of upside, would definitely need some development for Denver. So it really depends on where he thinks the Broncos are, George Paton does. Now let's go back to the trade real quick, just so you can kind of see it one more time. Like I said, Broncos get 15 overall this year from New England. Second rounder from New England. I believe that's pick number 46 overall, if I'm correct. Don't trust me on that one. 45 or 46 in that range. And then a first-round pick in 2022. In return, the Patriots received the number 9 overall pick. Would you do this trade? Let me know in the comments. Type A for accept or type D for decline. I've been back and forth all day about this, if we're being honest, kind of thinking about what Denver should do, because mock drafts are hardly an accurate prediction of how a real draft is going to go. With that being said, I'm a pretty big fan of trading down. I think I would accept. I think the haul is right to get it done. So I would type A for accept, but hey, maybe you disagree. Type D for decline, but get your votes in the comment section. Now at number 15, Caleb Farley was still on the board, and the Broncos took him in Mel Kiper's latest mock draft. Uber athletic guy. We've talked about him several times. Has all the physical tools you want in a cornerback. Tom Downey makes a great distinction. Obviously, our stud here, our draft stud, Tom Downey, says when you talk about Surtain and Farley, Farley has all the athletic tools to be able to recover from making a mistake, whereas Surtain is more likely not to make that mistake because his technique, his hands, his football IQ is so on point. But Caleb Farley, at the same time, scouts have been drooling over this guy and the tools that he brings. Opted out of the 2020 season due to COVID-19 concerns, but you look at the stats on your screen right now. In 2019, his coverage stats were ridiculous. Under 40% completion percentage, only 1 touchdown allowed, 12 pass breakups, 4 interceptions. The guy was a freak athlete. Really has all the tools, like I said, you want in a lockdown corner. And if he's there at 15, the Broncos pick him up. I think that's a very successful first round, especially when you get another second this year and a first rounder next year in return, maybe a chip in a quarterback trade race. That's something to consider if you're George Paton and people are asking to trade up, and we'll be interested to see what he does really as we approach draft night and what kind of moves he's considering as in his first season, his first offseason as the Broncos GM. A little bit of news here on Melvin Gordon on today's Broncos Breakdown. His DUI hearing has been delayed to March 10th. As many of you know, Melvin Gordon was pulled over in October for speeding and was found to be intoxicated by the police officer, failed a breathalyzer test at the scene. Now, the details are still a little murky because this hearing date is being pushed back, and it's a tentative date, could get pushed back again. But the Melvin Gordon ruling over his DUI charge could very well affect his status for the 2021 season, the start of the season, if he faces a 3-game suspension for being ruled guilty for DUI. He has pled not guilty, obviously, but we'll have to wait and see where that goes. As far as the information goes, I'll read these out right now. The tentative court dates. Your disposition court hearing now is on March 10th. And just for some context, a disposition hearing is a meeting between the two sides to determine whether a settlement can be reached before it goes to court. April 2nd, the pretrial hearing, and April 8th, Gordon's jury trial is set to take place. There's a lot to be, unraveled until then. And the reason why this date was pushed back to March 10th is because of new information that was revealed and that needs to be, further incorporated into the case. With that being said, I'm not sure Gordon is back week 1. I mean, we've seen DUI arrests recently in the NFL in the last couple of years, and a recent ruling that leads to a suspension for those if you plead guilty for those DUI charges. So Melvin Gordon facing a DUI charge, he's ruled guilty, misses the first 3 games of the season. At this point, it's kind of a toss-up. You don't really know the inside details of the investigation, and perhaps more information will be released over the weeks and months to come. Be sure to subscribe in case that happens, but I'm not so sure Melvin Gordon will be back week 1 for Denver. All right, we'll wrap up with your daily dose of what's going on with Deshaun. So here's the latest around Deshaun Watson. Obviously, the Texans insist they won't trade Watson. The teams keep calling. Watson met with the Texans' new head coach, David Culley, today on Thursday, and the message was the same. He doesn't want to play in Houston again. He's not budging. He wants out of Houston, and he's going to do what it takes to make that happen, even if it means potentially holding out of the start of the 2021 season. Now, reports suggest that Denver could still make a move for Watson. And with that being said, that doesn't mean they're the favorites. And we'll dive into all these different reports that we've heard about Watson in just a second. But first, I want to bring up a quote from John Clayton and his recent article on whether the Broncos could make a Deshaun Watson trade. He says, quote, "The 2 teams I see with a good chance to do something for Watson are Denver and Carolina. Overall, the great thing going for the Broncos is that this situation is going to take patience. And they can be patient as long as they have Locke, who they're going to keep while they wait to see what happens with Watson." And he makes a good point there, no doubt about it. I think that's a kind of a leverage standpoint that the Broncos have, is that they have Drew Lock kind of in a similar situation, though, with the Jets, the Dolphins, the 49ers. All of these teams can really afford to be patient. It's really the Texans that are in a bad spot because they want to keep Watson. Watson wants out. Everyone wants Watson. Now, with that being said, conflicting reports aren't really shocking to me, and conflicting rumors. They're called rumors for a reason. I mean, you're going to get conflicting things. John McClain has said recently, there's no chance the Broncos will make a trade for Deshaun Watson. Yet we keep hearing these reports that the Broncos could still be in the hunt. We've seen Deshaun Watson's reported, rumored short list of teams more recently that he's interested in a trade in. The Broncos were not part of that list, but they were part of a short list earlier in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So this is not surprising in any stretch of the imagination, and we're going to continue to get these conflicting rumors until Deshaun Watson is dealt, or until he maybe starts week 1 with the Texans. Now, that's not looking like the case, but I'm saying we can't rule out any sort of possibility. The Denver Broncos are in play. I'm willing to say that. Do I think they get him? My gut tells me no. My gut tells me no right now, and I'll close out on this question. Let me know the percent chance that you think the Broncos will trade for Deshaun Watson, anywhere from 0 to 100. If I had to put it anywhere right now, I'd probably put it at 20%, just because there are other teams, the 49ers, the Jets, the Panthers, the Dolphins, that have all been linked to Watson, even the Bears to an extent, and a team like, can't think one off the top of my head, but you get what I'm saying. There are a lot of teams in the Deshaun Watson mix, and it's going to take time for this to unravel. The Texans want to make sure that they're going to get the right price for him and the best value possible because he's a franchise quarterback. Said time and time again, there has not been a player of Deshaun Watson's caliber to become available at his age. Any team in the NFL that doesn't have Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson as their quarterback should be calling for a potential upgrade at quarterback. Maybe Buffalo, agree to disagree. But either way, let me know in the comments section, percent chance the Broncos get Deshaun Watson on a scale of 0 to 100. Plenty of more offseason coverage coming for you here on the Broncos Breakdown. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you very soon.